I'll get right into it. My name is Benjamin Cribbs. I am an elder care advisor. I am the founder of Senior Placement Solutions. It is a local and independent senior advising firm. And before I go any further, I'd like to tell you about 5 words. 5 words that come out of nearly every single family that I come encounter with over the past several years. Those 5 words are, I'm not that person yet, or I'm not there yet. And what does that mean? I've heard it from 78-year-olds. I've heard it from 92-year-olds. I heard it last month from my woman who had been recovering from a broken hip and had a surgery. Still living on her own, eating cereal and dinner without cooking, hadn't gotten much nutrition. And she still said, I'm not quite there yet. When most folks picture assisted living, I think they picture the line in the sand. A line you cross. On one side, you're independent, you have your own life. On the other side, you're being stripped away from your own autonomy. Anyone that wants to cross that line, so we wait. And while we wait, we knuckle down and we tell ourselves we're fine. And even when the laundry's gotten heavy, the stairs have gotten tough to carry, appointments are hard to keep track of. Here's what I've learned from doing this work. There is no actual line. There was never the line. Whoever drew that line in the imagination, I can promise it was drawn by our own internal fears, by old movies, old assumptions, and the classic, the nursing home. Assisted living isn't a place you go when you're done being yourself. It's a place you go so you can keep yourself independent for longer. What independence actually is. Let me ask you something. What does independence actually mean for you? I bet if you really sit with it, it's not, I want to do everything alone and for as long as I can and as much as I can. I bet it's more something along the lines of, I decide, I choose, I get to be me, I see what I want, I read what I want, I go to bed when I want, and I keep my own routines. I keep my own opinions, and I keep my own life. That kind of independence, assisted living doesn't take it away. I can promise you, it protects it. It helps prolong that. Here's the truth that no one will tell you. The biggest threat to your independence isn't getting some help with your shower. The biggest threat to your independence is the fall in the bathroom at 2 a.m. when no one is around. It's the missed medication that throws us off kilter. It's the kitchen fire, the leaving the sink on, the circumstances that I'm sure we have all heard countless times. Those are the things that take your independence, not a little bit of help to promote your independence. Assisted living is what you choose so you don't have to wait for the crisis to happen. So what is it really? Let me tell you, because there is a lot of fog around this, especially in our lovely state of Illinois. Assisted living is your own apartment, your own door, your own furniture, your own pictures on the wall, your own coffee in the morning. When you get up, you go where you would like. No one tells you specifically what you have to do. What changes is the things that were getting harder when you were living independent. Maybe someone comes in to help with the shower twice a week, the way a family member might if you had lived at home. Maybe your medication comes to you in the right doses at the right times, so you don't have to stop and think, if I'm taking the right one, the blue one, what time? Do I have to take it with food? Do I have to take it with water? There is no more worrying about that. Maybe dinner is downstairs in the dining room with people you've come to know instead of standing alone in front of the fridge at 7 o'clock. You keep your friendships. You keep your faith life. You keep your card game. You keep your habits. You keep your dignity, because real dignity is asked what you want and when you want it. The people that I've helped, I've been fortunate enough to help, and I've helped quite a bit of families. They tell me in 3 months, this is the version. I should have done this sooner. I had no idea how tired I actually was trying to keep my independence. The cost of waiting. I want to be honest with you for a minute, because I think you deserve honesty more than just the high-pressured pitch. The cost of waiting too long is typically not the financial decision. It's something more important than that. This is one I'm especially passionate about. When people wait too long, typically a crisis happens. The fall, the hospitalization, the rehab stay, until the spouse and family cannot do anything further. The decision stops being theirs. Someone else makes it. The hospital social worker makes it. The adult children step in and have to make that decision. The discharge planner makes it. You go from, I'm choosing this, to now, this is where we're going. That's the real loss of independence here. When you move on your own terms, you choose where you want to live. You choose the community. You pack your own boxes. You decide what comes with you. You walk into the front door under your own steam on the day you picked and the chair you've had for 20 years. This is not a loss of independence. It is a loss. This is an independence exercised. So here's what I'd ask for you today. I'm not asking you to move. I'm not asking you to decide anything today. Villa Saint Benedict isn't asking that as well. This is your home, and if you live here on your own terms, what I ask is this. The next time you catch yourself thinking, I'm not that person, I'd ask you to pause. Ask yourself the question, have I crossed that line? But am I doing the things I want to be doing? Am I spending all my time consuming with worrying about the crisis? Because the goal here was never to make it to the end on your own. The goal here was to live well, to stay yourself, to have good days with the people you love and the places that fit. If support helps you do that, more support isn't less independence. It's more life. My name is Ben, and if there's anything that I've said today that rings a bell, please feel free to talk to Villa Saint Benedict staff, talk to me, talk to Ryan, talk to Tom. The move from independent living to assisted living isn't the cliff. There is no line. And the more often than not, it's a step towards more life. Thank you.
Situation which she was just talking about, something tragic happened. You went to the hospital, now you're at rehab, now you've been told you shouldn't go home alone. Now you're under that gun of trying to find a place, and maybe it wasn't the place you wanted. You know, you wanted to go somewhere else. If you could just talk about that, just the crisis you went through with families, trying to find a place. You know, what is that like when you're a social worker?
Where do I start? I used to work at a local rehab in Naperville, Monarch Landing, if you're familiar with that, off 59 there. And I did that for many years. And you know, the passion of social work, you don't get into it to make a wonderful living, right? You get into it because of the passion. And so, to your point, Tanya, thank you. When we hold on to the independence, and trust me when I say I, myself, as an advisor, also want to live in my own house. I'm not encouraging, like, let's go from your beautiful independent living apartment in Villa Saint Benedict to over here to, the forbidden assisted living, right? But often in Illinois, when the crisis happens, Illinois is not a very favorable state when it comes to regulations to get folks into assisted living. There are pretty stringent guidelines on what you have to do independently and your acuity with certain medical needs. And so if you can make that step yourself, you're saving yourself, one, financially, and two, you're saving your family and a spouse, any other one that's invested in your life, you're saving them that worry of having to say, now we need long-term care. So when I was at the facility, Monarch Landing, I had so many families say, well, is there any other place we can go? And no, we're not eligible for a hip surgery because we have a heart failure and mom fell and fractured her hip. She's now 95 and she needs a total person assist, maybe with even a lift device, one of those big machines you've seen. Mostly under Villa Saint Benedict traditional, which falls under the traditional assisted living regulations, we're not qualified to stay into their assisted living. So that's kind of the, again, not the pressure, but it's like the, just put that birdie in your ear, So, did that make sense?
Oh, I don't know. Ben, I guess coming from sales, the biggest, I think, trauma or stress is we have a lot of couples. And a lot of couples get to the point where they're there now or they can see it happening in the near future where both of them don't necessarily need to move to assisted living. And it's the quandary. Do we stay together? Do you know what I'm saying? And I'm almost acting as a caretaker for my wife or my husband. Or does my spouse go into assisted living and in our situation, I stay independent, maybe I downsize. And I'm just wondering, how much are you dealing with that coming from people looking at different communities? It's a lot of stress because we rarely have somebody on the same level.
That's a very good question, and to answer that, it's probably weekly. My grandparents are longtime Napervillians. They live down the street on Charles and Chicago Avenue, and
Wow, that's kind of by you.
yeah. And they live in their beautiful home they built many years ago, and so I worry because I think one of them is going to be the ticking time bomb, because they are holding on to independence. Fortunately, we have a very involved family, so we're not too worried about that. But to your point, I think the statistic, I don't know the specific number, but more often than not, the caregivers of the one that is needing the care typically has more chronic illnesses and typically passes away sooner than the actual person that needs the care. And so I think more often than not, we like to hold on to that because of, I'm not sure if that's pride or other beliefs, but I think so often we hold on to that. We need to take care of them, and then we end up losing ourselves in the midst of that then you kind of counterproductive what you initially started of being able to keep them home and independent and loved. So I think making that move, whether that just be just dipping the toe into assisted living, trying a respite stay, maybe starting some care. I don't know if that's would be recommended with some caregivers, but that's probably the first step to talk about with families.
My big point is just that we have to remember, as the person who is taking care of the other one, that you also remember to take care of yourself.
Part of your business,
Sure.
what you do.
Sure.
And this is in regards to long-term care. Do you vet long-term care facilities and rate them as to, because my son and I have visited a couple, we don't need them yet, but, when you crunch the numbers, sometimes it costs more for a full-time caregiver than it does to just move. We're talking a couple $100,000 rate them, and you share that with the people you work with?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Another question is, when we looked around, how many, and I don't want an exact number, but are there enough or are there a lot of long-term care facilities that are worthwhile to move into? Because I remember when we moved my dad into a memory care place, this was in the early 2000s, the first test we gave it was a smell test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't run into that too much anymore, but it was a problem in the past.
Yeah. I'll answer your question by the last one that just came in. So the smell test, I think that's a very good point. So when you are touring these communities, whether it be with or facilities, and this is just a general rule of thumb, I think they say the first impression is 15 seconds, and then the next 15 minutes is in your aggregate memory of trying to validate if that first 15 seconds was accurate. So that smell test, that first 15 seconds, did someone greet you? What was the smell? What is the lighting? Was there an ambulance parked out front? Was there chaos? Was there disorganization? Those are all very important things. Price aside, the first thing that we always look for as advisors, especially independent advisors like myself and the team, is care. Care first and foremost. And typically those other things allude to care. To answer your question about the price and how we rate them, I do a pretty extensive dive on Illinois Department of Public Health. There is annual surveys that are posted. So the annual survey, the people from our lovely folks from Springfield come to these facilities and they rate, so they scrub every single thing in the facility. So from the kitchen to the nursing, to the medication, to transportation, to the lights, to the plumbing, everything is rated. Skilled nursing facilities in particular are actually the second most regulated industry in the United States, only under space. Fun fact. And I look at those before I'm making recommendations because that changes every single year. So even if we heard something very good about a facility from the year 2000, 2005, it might have changed by now. And so before we're making a recommendation, after we've done our discovery, is then when we're typically then saying, I think I would recommend this one, I would recommend this one, and I think I would probably pause on this one. So finding ones that are maybe Medicaid capable, is that what your question was kind of getting at?
Yeah, everything we looked at, we don't qualify for Medicaid.
Of course.
Medicare
Of course.
is nothing for you when it comes to
Yeah.
long-term care.
Oh, shucks.
So, or assisted living. So, yeah, this is all independent pay. So, yeah.
It's expensive.
Yeah, I don't think, yeah, most of us probably aren't looking at Medicaid for help.
If there's a spouse involved, I usually defer to elder law attorneys because they have specific strategies that are legally compliant. And if the one spouse does need what we call custodial care, then what would happen is you could keep your independence, presuming we're just talking just in general, presuming you could keep your independence, they then could go into a facility and now you keep your nest egg. Some of the wealth or the assets, the other nest egg goes to pay for their cost. That is compliant. Even though there is that Medicaid look back, you might have to take a small penalty on that, but that small penalty may save you several $100,000 or more. So it's typically worth it.
Is there a pre-planning strategy for transferring of wealth or, between,
Generations.
well, it would be between, I guess it would have to go to a son or a daughter or a family member, or would it go to the independent spouse?
Typically, it's moved into a trust. So the whole assets are moved into a trust, half for you, half for the spouse. So if you're working with round numbers of $1 million, we'll say. Typically half is to the spouse that needs long-term care, and the other half is for you. But then you also would then get to keep any other assets, so the car, the house, your Social Security, your pension, all of those type of things, it gets preserved for you.
Okay, it sounds like a deeper conversation with an attorney. All right,
Yes.
but I get the gist.
Yeah.
I know there's strategy, so.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Financial advisor.
I know.
We have a financial advisor to set up that trust well before you need it.
Yes. Yes.
Would you recommend that to the others too?
Yes.
we have a trust, but, her IRA and Roth IRA and my IRA and Roth IRA do not go into the trust because they're not, in order to put them in the trust, you have to sell all the assets. You'd have to sell all the assets and then you end up, with a big tax bill.
Yeah, with that. Have you worked with an elder law attorney?
I have not.
Okay.
I've worked with an attorney to set up the trust, but I'm kind of like a dog on a bone with this stuff, so I tend to use Google a lot. What can I tell you? It does take you to the right places if you're persistent and you don't worry about AI.
I think I would recommend meeting with a specific elder law attorney.
And we will.
I just wanted to make a comment. I'm sorry, I'm so hoarse. I think the desire of the more capable spouse, whether health or mentally or whatever, is to protect their spouse. And you'd rather be involved in the care, even if it kills you, than let them be in the care of strangers.
Absolutely. Yep.
Since you're a social worker, can you
Oh
talk
gosh.
a little bit about how family involvement works into all of this? Like the children, just the other people that maybe want to be involved and shouldn't be involved, or should be involved, don't want to be. Do you deal with that?
Yes. Typically, to your point and to the point we were talking about, in the estate plan is typically then when you start to name the people you want in control. And I think that kind of helps nit things in the bud. If there is, we'll say, interesting family dynamics of upbringing, no one child, even if you have multiple children, is raised by the same parents. They're different ages, different life circumstances has happened. And so that just so it's funny because a lot of families, whatever the dynamics were when they were growing up and at home, it's then not manifested in the last 50 years, but then when mom and dad do need help or the loved ones need help, then that kind of comes back into play. And so with advising, and I think this is what your question was getting at, and correct me if I'm wrong, with advising is we have to navigate that. It is not as simple as, here's a great place, let's go. It's doing some counseling. I don't bill for that, but
Counseling for the kids or counseling for the parents?
typically the children. It's the more often than not, from my experience. I'm just speaking from my experience. So it's because a lot of times if there is another child or the in-laws that want to come into play, if someone is not the power of attorney for health or for finance, then there might be certain conversations that I cannot have with them. And that's something that we do as advisors, and I know Cindy and Tanya and the team here at Villa Saint Benedict do the same thing, just out of protection for the families we serve. So.
Typically, when you say those type of disagreements happen in a critical or an urgent situation, when you have to make decisions right then and there, whereas if someone was a couple or a person was handling it all by themselves, completely healthy, picking a community, picking a place, there's less of the family dynamics. It seems to be in that emergent, critical, something happened, that this just blows apart sometimes. I think you, more than anybody, would know that.
Oh my gosh. Well, it goes back to basic psychology of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Is if things are moving too fast and there's so much stress, how are we expected to be able to make a clear decision? And so our roles as advisors is to be able to slow the pace. And I think the team here at Villa Saint Benedict does the same thing. We have to slow the pace of this if we are in the crisis. The goal is to avoid the crisis if we can. If we cannot avoid the crisis and we're in the crisis, then we buckle up. And that's our role as advisors and as the team here at Villa Saint Benedict is able to guide to make the right decisions clearly. So,
I have one more question. Would you, I know. Would you advise people to get an elderly care attorney as opposed to just an advisor that's been, with them throughout their span of, working together? Would you say it's probably important to get an elderly because they might know a little more about the elderly care?
advisor, like financial advisor,
Yes.
I think you have to have both.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you have to have the team. You have to have your whole team. Tax strategy folks, that's financial advisors, that's elder law attorneys. I know it's a lot, but if we can chip away at it from, the ages 60, 70, 80, while we're still cognitively able to make those decisions, then you're preventing any scrutiny from happening if someone is not able to make those decisions, because then we run into a whole different set of problems.
Yeah, just a couple quick questions. You talked about some of the triggers, indicators that someone or a couple might need to move into assisted living versus independent, and there's no hard set.
Yeah.
And short of any crisis that triggers it, there's probably a crescendo of triggers. And if you have two people, they're moving at different speeds on that and different issues. And so I don't know how the mechanics work here. Maybe it's more a question for ESP folks is, how does that work? Because I wouldn't want to separate a husband and wife going into a facility or shifting over. Is it one person moves, the other stays on the other side? And then the cost can also balloon if you do that because you're paying for two places. And I'd just be curious how that all works.
I'll speak a little bit on the apartments. If there's a couple in a 2-bedroom and one should go to assisted living or memory care, the other spouse can downsize to offset those costs. So if you're in a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, well, that spouse can downsize to a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom to offset that additional cost. But Kathy's got some very good speaking points.
I think we've seen both, right? We've seen where a couple, no matter what, wants to stay together, even though their needs are very different. So they'll wait for the size apartment that works for them, and then we will assess their needs, and they'll get different care plans and different levels of care. They will not be on the same level of care. We'll personalize it, we'll customize it. I've also seen where one spouse will move over and then we'll work together.
What is your charge per hour for this advice? What is your charge per hour for advice?
Free.
How do you make a living?
That is a very good question. Yes, I should have started with that. So it is a no-cost referral and placement service. So I tell families they can use and abuse that as much as they would like or as little as they would like. So we are here practically 24/7. I have a small team, so 7 days a week, most working hours into the evening. I have 2 little children, so I work around their schedule. And if it's just calling and asking for advice, I'm here, and I'm kind of the extension of Villa Saint Benedict. I don't want you to think that like it is, you know, Ben's Senior Placement Solutions and Villa Saint Benedict. We work very closely together because of how wonderful the folks here are. So, you know, if you just need advice or someone else needs to talk,
So you have your car, your business car?
yes.
I also want to stress, just from dealing with Ben coming in with customers, him and his team are very hands-on. So again, Ken, if you are exploring with your son some skill and you feel like you need more expertise, Ben most likely would be there with you. Do you know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
yeah.
Like, he knows the people at the Skilled, and that's where you're going to have his expertise, and he's there talking to the caseworker, their nurse, and asking questions maybe you're not thinking of. So he's very hands-on, just so you know.
Are you giving us the elderly attorney?
Yes, absolutely. Oh, yes.
Go then you can get his card.
Yes. Yeah, I'll give you all her contact. Yep.
Thank you, Ben.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.